Hello and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host Manny Maradiege, bringing you guys a new range of topics to talk about here on today's episode. Really excited to get into some of the stuff that I've planned out for you guys. A lot of comments made, a lot of comment-based stories that I have in today's episode. Starting off with what the Bears GM said recently at the NFL Combine. He was hitting the microphones for the first day of the Combine, and they asked him all the questions that you can imagine around Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, when this thing he thought was going to get figured out. All that and more, and my reactions to that. Later on in the show, I'm going to bring up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and why I think they're one team that a lot of people aren't bringing up, but could have big implications on this offseason if they get it all right. They got a lot of pending free agents that they got to sort out. A lot of guys that were crucial to them last year, and if things don't go right, it could look pretty bad for them heading into next season after having a very good last season. All that and more coming up. Later on in the second half of the show, I'll talk about Stephen Jones and some more of that Cowboys drama around their culture and the kind of environment that they're building, the kind of attitude that they carry in and without the building, and how that translates onto the field. I'll give my thoughts on that and what he said at the Combine as well. Before wrapping it up with the biggest story I thought of the most recent news was Mecole Hardman and what he had to say about his former team, the New York Jets. He obviously signed there last offseason, and I think he only made it through 6 weeks before he was traded back to the Chiefs. And now he appeared on the Pivot podcast, and he said some very harsh words towards the New York Jets, and some of the New York Jets office members and players even responded to him. So stick around for all that. That'll be at the end of the show. You're not going to want to miss it. But that allows me to jump into the first episode, or the first segment, being what General Manager Ryan Poles had to say. But before I do that, I want to remind you guys to please use the tip and donations link with any questions that you may have during the show. Using the tip and donations link makes it possible for me to see your question, makes it able for me to read it on the air, and that way it's a lot more engaging, a lot more fun, I think. So if you do have a question, please use the tip and donations link running across the ticker below me. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It's a new tip and donations link that we got. So that, again, is GSMC Podcast Network. And using that just allows me to see your question, read it out in the air, and it just makes it a lot more interactive, and it's a huge help for this show, the network as well, and the other shows, and it's greatly appreciated every time you guys do that. But that being said, it allows me to jump into the first segment of the show, the chip shot story as always. Something quick, something that I found interesting over the week, and that is General Manager Ryan Poles and what he had to say at the Combine. He's obviously a very popular guy now, with really the whole draft is based around what this one guy does, if you really think about it. And it's crazy when you say it like that, but he was in this position last year. He traded the pick away to the Carolina Panthers, and it was all written after that. They picked Bryce Young instead of C.J. Stroud. Obviously, looking back at it now, it looks ridiculous now, but, it's all very subjective and in the moment. And I think comments came out afterwards that the Panthers said everyone in their front office was very unanimous in the decision to draft Bryce Young. And, at that point, if everyone's thinking it, it's really only a question of just helping him out. And I know he didn't have the best of seasons, but he's always going to be tied to C.J. Stroud, and that discussion is always going to come up regardless of where they end up in their careers or how it all pans out. And the same could be said this year. Ryan Poles now is in the same position as he was. Now it just depends if he's going to trade out of it or is he going to stick with Justin Fields. He finally got a chance to speak on it, and I just have snippets of it here in front of me. A lot of the comments I thought were pretty interesting. One of them was reporter Mike Garafolo reported that Ryan Poles had said before that he hadn't had any big time conversations around the number one pick with any team as of yet. A lot of teams have just kind of checked in with him, just to check out the water, check out the temperature, how everybody's feeling around it. But no real concrete discussions have been had. He later on said in one of his multiple interviews that it would have to be a significantly intriguing offer to help the organization for him to trade out of it. That I thought that was, pretty self-explanatory. And just also on that topic, he said, if we go down that road, which is trading Justin Fields, he wants to do right by Justin. And he paired that up later with saying that we'll move as quickly as possible because nobody wants to live in the gray. Nobody wants to live in uncertainty. So he wants to make sure, once he makes a decision, I'm sure it's kind of translating for him saying, once we have the decision, we're going to translate that over to Justin Fields, and he'll know as soon as the decision is made. And I think that's the way to go. A lot of times people don't think about, general managers as saying things like this. They almost never really say something like this when it comes to a player or if they want to, benefit the organization, benefit themselves most often than not. I thought this was very honest, very genuine. It seems like he's trying to get it off as that. Trying to, do the best for Justin, but also do the best for the organization. And, a lot of people coming into this figured that this would be the scenario where a trade would get done. It was done at this time last year when they traded out of the number one pick. And saying that, I do kind of expect a trade to still be done. We're at Thursday now. They've been there since Tuesday. I wasn't expecting it to happen on Tuesday, right when everyone got there. But, as soon as we hit maybe tomorrow, maybe even early Saturday, I expect something to happen. If nothing happens, then I don't expect it to happen on Sunday or on the last day. I think it'll probably end up happening into March, right before the new league year starts. And I think a lot of people are trending in that direction because it's been pretty quiet as of now. There's been no real activity. There's been some murmurs around other teams like the Atlanta Falcons reaching out potentially and seeing what it's like, but there hasn't been a plethora of teams that have reached out per reports that, they've been interested in Justin Fields as of yet. So it's kind of moving a little bit slower than I anticipated at least, but it seems just like by whatever he's saying, the other reports that came out were that ESPN sources said that he's not being approached about, or he is being approached about Fields and both trading back. So he is getting talks about it on both fronts, but nothing really too concrete, like I said before. And just from my estimation, reading this and how slow it's kind of going, it does seem like at this point they're in no real rush to get anything done. And, just based on what they did last year with trading out of it, I find it really hard to believe that they'll do that again. Because last year they went the route of, we're going to help the quarterback, we're going to support him by trading out, getting more picks, getting more support for him, building the rest of the team around the quarterback first, like I've been a big advocate of on this show and in various episodes. And now they're in the same situation again. And of course everyone wants the opportunity to draft these players, have high draft picks, and get the best players available, but the Bears don't always want to be picking in the top three, and they're in a very, very rare situation that they get to do it again, just based on the deals that they did with the Panthers, able to get their first round pick for this year and DJ Moore for the number one pick last year. It turned out as best as it could for the Bears this year. Now, it's an extremely rare situation, and I find it very hard to believe that they'll trade out of it again because of, all the hype being built up around these quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, obviously, Drake May. I think how often are you going to be back here with three really good guys for you to draft? Probably not often or ever again. Hopefully, if you're the Bears, that's probably what you're hoping, what your estimation is. But for general manager Ryan Pohl's sake, it's kind of been this long process before. with their previous general manager, Ryan Pace, now gone. Now Ryan Poles is kind of taking over, and he's kind of, getting a little bit on the hot seat because of this process. People start to get impatient, especially when it's around their quarterback. The Chicago Bears have never had a star-studded franchise quarterback in their history ever, really, and they have a chance to get one now. They took a backseat last year where the Bears traded out of it, and, they supported the team. They built up the rest of the team now. I think people would definitely be calling for his job if he trades out of it, and Caleb Williams goes on to be this amazing, great Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think his hands are a little bit tied, but you kind of want to see some movement going on, or at least I expected it to by this time because of all the talk that was being had. The way he made it sound in these comments to me, it appeared that he almost had a decision made already. He wants it to be done as quickly as possible, and he almost wants these teams to reach out to him because like he said, he doesn't want to live in uncertainty. He doesn't want this just dragging over the offseason, and that makes sense. He wants to move past it, and he just wants to start thinking of the future and how else to help this football team. But until something actually does happen, until somebody else makes the first move, I think we're just going to be living in this speculative era in the offseason. With February almost coming to an end, it's usually where March is usually where it starts to pick up a little bit more. So that's just tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow we should expect to hopefully see some more movement leading up to the new league year starting on March 13th. And then the league has its meetings with the owners and everything late in March. So more information will come out of that. But for right now, we're going to put a pin in that. And we're going to move on to some more topics coming down the line later in this episode. The beef between Mecole Hardman and his former team, the New York Jets. He had some very revealing things to say about the Jets' offense, some of their coaching staff, and he even mentioned Aaron Rodgers in some of those quotes. If you want to know what he said in those quotes, plus some other stories I have on the Cowboys and on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, stick around. After this short break, I'll come back and I'll give you all the details that you want to know around all those teams, the Cowboys, the Bucs, and Mecole Hardman and the New York Jets. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.